Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Supervision Matters podcast with Rita Sever, a leadership coach, HR consultant, and author of Supervision Matters and Leading for Justice. Welcome, everyone. We love our time with Rita Sever. She's always talking about supervision matters, and it does. Right now, as we know, the world is always changing, business is changing, and communication is a key part of taking care of your organization, whether you're a business or a nonprofit. As changes happen, communication is going to be the key to keeping your team together. Last time we talked about setting up your team for success. Today, we're going to talk about communication. Rita is going to share some tips, some tools, and traps, yes, for supervisors and, as she says, for other humans. So basically, communication tips for everyone because yeah, you've got some great skills that we can adapt into our lifestyle so that we're better at communicating. So I'm excited about this and welcome back. How are you doing?
Thank you, Lisa. It's great to be with you again. I'm doing okay. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking about something we can focus on. And even when you know these things in your head, it's so important to be reminded of them. I teach this stuff, and I know that, my husband will continually tell me, "You're not listening to me." Oh, yeah, that's important.
Yeah, I get that from
So,
Nancy a lot.
be
She's like, you're not
reminded of
listening.
your tools. So,
Yeah, but communication, when I say it's key, actually, yeah, having these reminders,
right.
like how you taught us scope last time, and now you've got some great skills, but do you really, like I say, it's key? I think it really is the glue, isn't it?
It is so critical because to be an effective team, whether your team is a whole group of people or you and your partner or you
Mm,
and your colleague, whatever the team
mhm,
is, you have to be able to have disagreements occasionally. We're gonna disagree with each other. And
mm,
being able to talk through those disagreements is critical for any team to be successful. And you can't talk through disagreements if you don't use good, solid communication tips
mm,
and tools. And if you can't move through those disagreements and those sticky spots, people don't have the skills and safety to say what they need to say around boundaries or concerns, even good ideas, but those are usually easier. Then they will get stuck and they'll get frustrated and they'll probably end up leaving the organization. So being
mm,
able to have good, productive conversations and
mm.
communicate is critical. It's just a bottom line skill.
Now, is this something that, you talk about, for supervisors, HR, obviously,
Mm.
and so everybody in management, but I think, like you said, and for other humans, that if everybody in the workplace are all learning these, won't that make a better team?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If we can all share the tools and the tips and then gently remind each other, that
Mm,
can really help move a productive conversations along.
okay. So let's go to the two essential skills. And everyone, I've listed this in the episode notes, some just little points so that we all have that. You say the two essential skills to start off with. One is I statements. Oh, me, myself, and I.
Right. So the idea of the I statement is that the main thing is it's not a you statement. A you statement is YOU. When you start a concern or any statement with you, whether you mean to or not, it comes across as accusatory.
Mm.
You did this, and it feels
Oh,
like somebody is shaking their finger at you.
I don't like the finger.
No, you feel defensive when you feel like you're getting
But
chastised.
read it. You just did the finger. Like
Yes, I did it to
I know
illustrate that
that's,
that's what it feels like.
but
Yes.
it's you. You're not like that.
No, I'm not. And so the I statement is simply taking a moment or as much time as you need to figure out, why am I wanting to say this? What is it about me? So instead of saying you're always late, you change it to what about them being late is affecting me? I'm frustrated because I take time to get here to our meetings on time, and then I get frustrated when you come in 10 minutes later. Can we talk about how we can make times that are real for our meetings?
Mm,
It's so much easier to hear that than you're always late. So the
mm,
I statement, first of all, it helps you prepare for the conversation and helps you ground yourself in what is it about this that matters to me? How is it affecting my work or our relationship? And then you can state it in a way that isn't as loaded as using a you statement.
mm.
And it can be transformative in and of itself. And even if it isn't transformative, it will make the conversation feel different and
Yeah.
therefore open the door to a productive conversation.
Because some people don't understand that exactly what you just did, talked about as that example about someone being late, happened to me yesterday when I sat for 15 minutes waiting for someone to show up for a podcast, and then had another podcast coming up to record. And I emailed after 5 minutes, because to me, you
Mm.
should be there on time, especially in their field, which, but anyway, so they email 15 minutes later after I said, I'm hanging up, I'm sorry, but I gotta go.
Mhm.
And said, oh, sorry, I had an emergency. It wasn't like life or death. And please give me 10 minutes and I'll be there. And I went out of my own, like, no, and I would not. So I just emailed back and said, I'm sorry. I didn't say I'm sorry. I wouldn't do it. I've
Good.
learned to stop. That's a
Yeah,
no-no.
that's good.
I
Right.
I did a no-no. I went ahead to talk to Nancy, because calm yourself down. I said, oh, I'm
Right.
really. She said, well, what, you're upset? I'm like, yeah, because I learned all my stuff. I go through
Right.
notes. I'm prepared, and it was a
Right.
book. I'm prepared. Somebody else could have had your spot, and I just went, I'm on deadline and I have another podcast. I cannot do that.
Good.
And then it was, oh, sorry. Oh, my deep apologies. I should have
Right.
messaged you. And I thought, yeah,
Absolutely.
if I had just gone, oh, sure, which I
Hmm.
actually really didn't have the time. And it's a pet peeve of mine is when someone wastes my time, because I don't have a lot of time. None of us do. We're here
Right.
on earth for until what? Anything could happen tomorrow. So
Right.
time wasting is a no-no to me. But I did not apologize, because there's that
Good.
natural reaction to say I'm sorry. And so
Yes,
I think
especially as
and
women, we've been trained to do
the
that.
person's attitude and whole tone just completely switched. My
Right.
sincerest apologies, you know, blah blah blah. But so I think if I had not done it, if I'd come out of anger, we're
Right.
not going to reunite. And everybody has time to mess up. I'm sorry.
Right.
Everybody has been late. We've all done it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and it was some kind of emergency. So it's not bad, but I could get mad, and then you've
Right.
burnt a bridge.
Yes, you're closing the door when you come at them with anger or the you
But I'm
statement.
still mad.
Yeah, and you can even say, I feel angry right now.
Hmm.
That's an I statement. Um,
Mm.
but by changing it to an I statement, you're opening the conversation in a different way. Again, you're not pushing the person to feel defensive right away.
Mm.
You're inviting
Mm.
them to a conversation.
Mm.
It's not, doesn't solve all the problems, but it opens the door for a more productive conversation.
Okay, now your other skill. Oh, this is such a biggie, active listening. You
Yes.
just listened to me, and I was calm about my ranting.
Right. Yes, I think this is so critical because when we think of communication, we usually think about how I'm going to say something, how I talk, which is important. But the other half of the conversation is just as important, if not more so. And that is not only hearing the person, but making sure the person feels heard.
Mm.
And so active listening is just what the words imply. Probably most people have heard of this concept, but it takes work because in our culture, we are so often doing 5, 6, 8 things at once. But right now, I see my phone's blinking at me and it's hard to resist it. I have to turn it over. So your mind is going many different places. And so active listening is bringing yourself back to the conversation. I want to be here. reminding yourself, I need to listen to this person. You don't have to do this all the time. We often function doing 2 or 3 things at once. And most of the time that's fine, but if there's any disagreement or upset, then active listening is essential.
Mm.
So paying attention, not only listening to what the words they're saying, but what's behind it. What are they telling you? And what do you need to know? Really hearing it from their perspective. I learned this phrase that helps me picture it. I had a teacher tell me, you want to understand their movie, what's going
Mm.
on for them, and to
Mm.
bring your ears and your heart to hearing them. So often active listening involves some reflection. So Lisa, I hear that that was really frustrating for you yesterday, and that I think it sounds like you felt disrespected. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So
That's
that's the way,
yeah.
yeah, reflecting back so that you know I heard you. And the checking in part is critical because that's where you know not only did I hear you, but do you feel heard?
Mm.
Because until someone feels heard, they can't move forward.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's frustrating because sometimes you do hear them right away, but they don't feel heard.
Mm.
And that's hard to then go, okay, let me try it again. And then see if they feel heard the second time. And maybe you
Mhm.
didn't hear it correctly or you emphasized the wrong thing. And if you do it more than 2 or 3 times, then I would say something like, I'm clearly not getting it. Maybe we should take a break and then continue this conversation because I really do want to hear your concerns.
Mm. Good point. Because maybe it's even just how it's being told. Because sometimes people communicate like louder or faster because
Yes,
so that they get heard, which means
right,
people didn't really quite get what you were trying to say.
right,
And that you see that when, and the other part is active listening. I can tell you what Nancy and I, right? We're mother daughter, and you think we know each other really well. It's like, oh, I could
right,
finish that, which is a danger.
right. Absolutely.
We have to stop each other and say, hey, you think you know where I'm going with this, but you actually don't. So
Right.
please,
You don't. And even if you do, I
mhm.
still need you to hear me.
Yeah, exactly. It does. It's not, don't, because people will try, if you have a concept that you're trying to tell someone about, they're like, oh, just email. No, you want to have a concept to feel, right?
Right.
There's a concept, then people need to be able to get that through to people. And if you're not being heard, they'll only hear one part and not really realize the concept. That's what I think a
Right.
lot of times happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I
I
have to
like
tell
the movie thing. That's cool.
right. And I have to tell you this quick story that I
Hmm.
always remember when I talk about active listening. Um, because the magic, active listening can be magical. And here's
Hmm.
an example of that. I learned about active listening when my daughter was a baby teenager. Um, and I came home all excited about doing this, and something came up. She was upset about something, and I did the active listening, and it worked great. She felt heard. I had a better understanding of what her feelings, her perspective was. I was able to use I statements and tell her my concerns. Great. Then a couple weeks later, something else came up, and I did it again. Great. Form, really present, active listening. And she, in her 14-year wisdom, said, don't give me that active listening crap. And I was like, uh, and so I doubled down and I said, you feel like this active listening practice is crap? And she said, yeah, I do. And then she went on to say it, and I reflected again, and it worked. So even when people feel like it's artificial or stupid or crap, it can
Yeah.
still work.
Yeah. Because you're listening. Yeah.
Right.
No
Yeah.
matter what, it's
Wherever they
listening.
are, you meet people where they are and you really try to understand their movie.
Yeah. I like the movie. That's a good one.
Yeah. And I want to say
Oh,
one other thing before we
mm.
move on about
Yeah. Yeah.
acting, because one of the things that really helps me work to be present and active listening let me find my note here. The studies have shown that people think at a rate of 500 to 600 words a minute. So our brains move really fast.
Wow.
We speak at a rate of 125 to 150 words a minute. So it is a real thing that when you're trying to listen, your brain is probably going, yeah, I know what they're saying. Let's move on. Think about what you're going to make for dinner. What are you going to, don't forget to get this at the grocery store. So that's where the active part comes in. You have to bring your brain back and say, slow down. I really want to be present in this conversation.
And once you do, it's actually letting your brain calm down for a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's good for your blood pressure, man.
Yeah, absolutely. If nothing else,
Just chill
absolutely.
out. It's like, look at it as taking a break. I
Right.
love that. So getting to your tips, you have a couple of really fantastic tips. And one is, and I think they go hand in hand. The one is word choice and the other one is positive framing. So word choice. Ooh, because yeah, that's a goodie.
Yes. Just being thoughtful, again, taking a moment to think about how will they best hear what I have to say. And an example of being thoughtful about word choice is I know this person who used to always tell me if I was upset, they would say, settle down. And of course, that had the opposite impact on me. It just made me more furious.
Yeah.
And when they learned that, then they could frame it a different way. Let's take a minute. Or,
Mm,
something that wasn't a hidden you statement.
yeah. It's the
So
I versus the you.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a different way of saying that.
Mm,
And there's other ways that word choice really matters. Like I remember once there was something happening somewhere and news reporters reported it as a riot happening. And then in conversation with some people, and I think maybe even another news outlet, it was reported as a protest.
oh
And
yes. Well, that's been going
so,
on yeah, that
yeah, so the perspective that some words can bring in make a difference.
mm,
And I want to just tell you this one other study that is just fascinating. They brought in two groups of people to watch a video, or I guess they were one group, watch the same video of a car crash. They showed a car crash happening, and then they showed it in slow motion. And then they divided the groups into two groups. And one group, they asked the people, how fast was the car going before it collided with the other car? And the second group was asked, how fast was the car going before it smashed into the other car? And then they compared those answers. And the group that heard the word collide were like 20 miles an hour slower estimates than the group that heard the word smashed.
wow.
And then they brought the people back a week later and they asked the groups again, did you see glass in the video? And the groups that heard the word smashed swore they saw glass on the road, and there was no glass on the road. So that
Wow.
was a really good study to show how
Wow.
the choice of words matter.
Wow. I have a friend, Shelly Wizen. She has a podcast with us here on Big Blend Radio, and she's a transformational life coach.
Uh-huh.
And she nails me on shows. And she has this thing about the word should.
Uh-huh.
She says, you're shoulding on yourself.
Good. Yes.
She says,
Yeah.
so many times you go, oh, they should have done this. Well, who are you to say who should what?
Right.
Who do you, we're
That's
all human and we all forget that we're allowed to be human. We're allowed to make mistakes, but the should word is
him
really
with ourselves, like you said, shooting on yourself.
exactly. And so I'm trying really hard not to use that word because, and the more you realize it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so negative.
Right. Exactly.
It's like you
That's
should do
bringing
this. And we're telling people what to do all the time that, and not meaning to, it's instead of suggesting, it's, and sometimes
or
people don't want suggestions either.
Exactly. That's the other thing to ask. Hey, I have a thought about what you could do. Would you be interested in hearing it?
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah, the should, yeah, that's a good one. And the positive framing, I think it exactly because the collide is like, okay, more reality based than
Right.
smash is negative, and the collide feels like, oh, the seatbelt worked.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think the positive framing is just a slight shift of, especially when you're having a disagreement, what do you want to focus on in terms of outcomes? So focusing on what could happen, what good can come out of
Mm-hmm.
it, instead of, again, this is what you did wrong, or don't do this anymore. It would be really helpful if you could pause before you react.
Mm-hmm.
It would be really helpful if you could listen to me before I
Yeah.
interrupt me, whatever.
Yeah.
Focusing
Don't
on,
interrupt.
yeah.
Interrupting's bad.
And
I
I
know
know
it's hard.
I did interrupt you a couple times. I
I
apologize.
I don't care. It's fine.
But
You know, but it is it's yeah, the positive thing to me is really going back to your goals and not getting into an argument. Arguments come from not taking that seat back and trying to it comes from not going for the best the keeping positive, like looking for a solution. If someone's having a disagreement,
right,
then it's about, okay, I'm here to create the solution with you. If we're having a disagreement, where can we unite and where can we find a solution?
right. And argument has more of a negative tone to some people than disagreement, but as long as you're on the same side and working towards solutions, then you're
Mm-hmm.
doing what you need to do. I think
Mm-hmm.
the other tip I have around positive language
Mm.
is, again, an oldie but a goodie, watching your butts. Every time you say but, which I just did, you're putting up a stop sign.
Yeah.
Positive way to just slightly change it is and.
Mm.
So instead of saying, I hear what you're saying, but I'm concerned about this, I hear what you're saying, and I'm
Mm.
concerned about this. You're inviting the other person into the solutions
Mm.
again instead of the stop sign.
Yeah, and it's like when people say, "Oh, I'm going to play devil's advocate," and I'm like, I hate that term because it's why don't you just say, "Hey, I have a difference of opinion or an alternative view from what
Right,
you were saying. Here's my view on it, but maybe together we create a new view. Who knows?
right.
You
Yeah.
know, the
And
alternate
so,
route,
and
you know."
builds on each other's ideas
Mm,
instead of making it adversarial.
mhm.
So it's a
Yeah.
really simple little thing, hard to remember, but
Mm.
a very powerful shift when you can remember to do it.
Yeah. If you want things to be done and effectively, you do have to be on the same side. And this works in families. I mean, this works with everyone, small business to giant corporations. If your communication is working, things can be achieved. It's not about being who's sensitive and who's not. It's not that. And I
Right.
think the sensitivity word is being used in so many, that's also a weird word. Like
Mhm.
that's people think, oh, you're being a baby, just do what I'm telling you, kind of thing. And I'm like,
Right.
that's not going to get anywhere.
Right. That's, people are going to feel again disrespected and
Yeah.
challenged instead of like, let's work together. And
Yeah.
until I feel heard, I'm not going to move forward.
The other one going into, you've got traps. Okay. Assumptions. Oh my.
Right.
Oh, that's a good one. Ooh.
Yeah. And it's so sneaky because by definition, we don't always know what our assumptions are. Often there are blind spots and we
Mhm.
don't see them. But sometimes they're just, like you said, with you and your mom, I know what you're going to say. You're assuming you know what they're going to say.
Yeah.
So watching out, and if you hear assumptions from the other person, check it out. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you're
That's the other but. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's the other but.
yes, exactly. That's very true. So I think the most powerful two things with assumptions is watching for them, being aware that they're gonna be in your brain. That's just how we think and function. So when you catch your own, check them out. And the way to check them out is be curious.
Mm.
Curious is the superpower um
Oh, it's
to
great.
undermine assumptions. I'm wondering if this is what you have in mind, or I'm
Mm,
wondering if, you know, you're remembering the fight we had last week or what happened last time we had this kind of discussion. Can
mm,
we put that aside and be here
mm.
now?
Oh, being present. I love that. And it's so true. Like, using Nancy and I as a example, it's not to be mean. It is absolutely not. Assumptions are because you get to know someone. That is a normal human, like, oh, I know what they're gonna say. And it
Mm-hmm.
and it's a positive in a way, in that, hey, I know you, but then you're overstepping a line, right? So that's
Right.
a assumptions and boundaries kind of, and then if someone says exactly what you think they were going to say, then you go, oh, I thought you were going to say that. Oh, I know you so well. That's so nice. That's warm. That's
Right.
warm,
Right. And
you know?
yeah, that's a very powerful connection, actually.
Hmm.
The other way that assumptions can trip us up when they're based on stereotypes. If I'm talking to
Mm,
a man and he raises his voice, my assumption is he's angry at me.
hmm.
And he may not be, he may just be speaking with a booming voice. But if I have that assumption, then I'm going to respond differently than if I just say, are you angry right now? Is there
Mm.
anger in the room that we need to talk about? So watching that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a truth. So it also is how you communicate that, hey, somebody may have that assumption. And if someone brings that up to you, and like you're saying, with curiosity, are you angry? Is something we should know? That lets the other person know, hey, I'm like being taken the wrong way, and I didn't mean that at all.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
I'm a very loud and la 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 la, you know well, if I do yell at you, you're gonna know. So you can assume that at
Right.
that point you're going to
Okay.
know. You're
Fair
going to
enough.
know. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no
assumptions are right.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that one you can assume away on that. But I think, but that's because I'm being very clear, like, you
Mhm.
know what I mean. And
Right.
so that's the thing too, is to be, I think, in communication, it's clarity. And
Right.
sometimes you're trying to communicate something that, in organizations, if you're working on an idea, and maybe there's a time pressure, deadlines, and you have a concept of something, sometimes you just don't have the right words yet, but you're working on it, and you need someone to hear you
Mhm.
out to formulate it. And I
Right.
think we have to say words like, can you hear me out for a second? I know I haven't got everything together, but I need you to hear it, because to help me get it together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think using the word help is actually a very nice word.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is.
When
Because then
people are heard, like,
you're
I
inviting,
need your, yeah, I need your opinion, I need your help, people
right.
tend to listen more.
Absolutely. Good point. Yeah.
Let's talk gossip. Oh boy. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I just did an interview on gossip, and it was a real scandal. Anyway,
Wow.
yeah.
I think the main thing here is that gossip is a trap because it can feel like you're connecting with someone, but it's a poisonous connection. It's gonna
Yeah.
poison the water. And everybody knows if you gossip with me about anybody else, I'm gonna assume, again,
Mhm,
assumptions, I'm gonna assume you're talking behind my back also.
mhm,
And that usually proves true. So in an organizational setting, it just poisons the water and leads to a toxic
mhm.
environment. And,
Yeah.
so keeping work focused on work and having a no gossip policy and practice.
Oh, I like that, because gossip, I mean, that's where people start creating assumptions in their head. They create a bigger story.
Right.
And by the time it gets around to the person, it's like that phone chain thing. The
Absolutely.
story's changed. They say about
Absolutely.
living in a small town, if you don't give them something to talk about, they'll make it up for you.
Right. And that's true in an
It
office.
is true.
Yeah. But if you can remember that not only does it warp and change and poison the water, but it sets people up to be adversarial. So it undermines that teamwork again.
Mm. Yeah, and it also creates fear because gossip could be, oh, so went into that office. Oh, I wonder if they're going to get fired. And then here it goes. Everybody feels fear. Energy is energy too.
Absolutely.
It
That's a good
is.
point.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's not productive. That whole day could go down the toilet
Yes.
just over that,
Right.
creating drama. So ignoring problems was your final part of this. Oh
Right.
boy.
Yeah. So I think this is where we really could circle back to a supervision perspective, because as supervisors, sometimes, of course, sometimes it is the right thing. If it's a little problem, first time somebody makes a mistake, still talk to the person about it. Don't ignore them. But I'm really talking about the big trap here is when you just don't want to deal with something. You don't want to have a hard conversation. You don't want to make the person feel bad, your assumption that they'll feel bad. And so you ignore the problem. That not only doesn't work for that person because they don't have a chance to improve what they're doing, but it sets up a disincentive for everybody else. Why am I working so hard when they're not doing what they need to do and nobody's addressing it? So it really again undermines the work.
Yeah, I think that's it. That creates assumptions too. Yeah, that's a perfect tie-in, and it
Yeah,
means that you haven't been listening,
right.
and you
Exactly.
lose trust.
Yes,
I
you do.
think that's the biggest thing is you lose trust.
Right. Because you're not doing what you say you're going to do, and you're
It's
not paying
it's like
attention
have
to
it's
the,
like having a bad landlord.
yeah, yep,
Right.
it is.
It
And
is.
building that distrust spreads quick, just like gossip does.
And to rebuild is so difficult.
Right.
It's
Right.
even harder. So no, good stuff. Rita, I love these conversations. You always keep me
Great.
on track. I'm like, oh, because even putting it all together, I'm like, okay, she got me thinking, and no, because I think all of these skills are things that all of us can use. So it's really good information. Everyone, again, Rita is here every third Friday. So check that out and go to supervisionmatters.com, but also go to bigblendradio.com. Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
It was great to talk to you. See you next
And
month.
actively listen.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to Big Blend Radio's Supervision Matters podcast with Rita Sever. Keep up with Rita at supervisionmatters.com and listen to new episodes every third Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on bigblendradio.com.